Recording in progress.
As is our custom of old, we'll leave the microphones open until just before we go into the service so people can chit chat and say hello. That wasn't really a question. It was a suggestion.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Maura.
If we were all walking in the door, we'd be chit-chatting, that's for sure.
Matt, we'll run through these twice and then we'll start the service.
Okay.
So what did you eat on New Year's? My family tradition is to eat black-eyed peas.
Pork,
Well-
mashed potatoes, and sauerkraut, which is the old Amish New Year's tradition of pork and sauerkraut as a meal of luck. For good luck.
Jude's church had someone prepared dinner at their house for anybody who wanted it. Usually we have the option of eating there, but this time it was all takeout. And it included excellent stuffing and turnips. And Jude had some turkey or something with it, a few other things. But the colors didn't quite match mine because they weren't as fresh, but everything else was great.
Good morning, Cooper. Oh, left. I don't think that was on purpose. So I set aside beans. I don't like black-eyed peas, so I just did black beans and beet greens. And I tried for the first time making a cheesy polenta, and it was delicious. But I didn't end up eating it until supper because I got a lunch invitation since we decided to cancel a hike, which was a good call because I was using windshield wipers all the way out there. So would have been a wet day. But that was my New Year's meal.
Yeah, Greater Worcester Land Trust went ahead with their hike on Moreland. It was good.
Morning, Tom. You got some nice people sitting there behind you.
Yeah, that's my Texas family.
Yep.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Texas
Can you hear me?
family.
Morning,
you hear
Peg.
me?
Nice sweater.
Whose sweater?
Peg Daly.
Hey,
Hey, Peg.
I'm actually celebrating Christmas today with my Massachusetts grandkids. So,
Oh, fun.
Oh, then Merry Christmas.
and the good thing is, I took an antigen COVID test this morning, which is negative. So this is good.
So here's the question. If this is the ninth day of Christmas, were you giving your grandchildren?
Oh, wait,
9 ladies dancing?
I was in Cleveland over Christmas with my third son and his twin kids and all that. And then I was supposed to go to Wyndham with another family, but they had COVID, so I was home. So this is the first time I'm seeing these kids since Christmas. So I've got everything all packed, ready to go.
Awesome.
And I took a flight from Boston to Cleveland and back, all on time, no problems. We went to a play. We saw Wicked in Cleveland. It was incredible, and did, a bunch of things, and I'm negative, so whew,
Sounds good.
feeling good.
Hey,
Can you hear
Jesse
me?
Trowbridge, this is Diane Mann. Jesse, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
I want my Girl Scout cookies.
Me too. They have not arrived yet. Here's the
Okay.
Girl Scout.
All right.
Take it up with her. I think they come in soon and then we can start delivering. And Robin said that we could set up a little booth at Fellowship Hour one day too, once we're back on the scene.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Steve.
Hi, everyone.
Happy
It's
New
wonderful
Year.
to see you.
Thank you. Happy New Year to all of you. You can see me too, I assume, so I can see myself.
Yep.
Yes.
Good morning, Joanna Spencer. Long time no hear from. This is Diane Mann.
Oh, good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy
Carol,
New
do
Year.
you want to post the link again for people who
I
want
will
to
be
make questions?
happy to do that.
Folks, because this is the Question the Minister Sunday, and because we are in remote format, we've posted an opportunity for people to be able to submit questions online if you desire. I'll also take questions on the screen, but if you want to make your question known without having to identify yourself, this is a way to do it. The other way to do it would be to private message Cheryl Lachey, who will then post the question to me as well. So
I can hardly wait to be questioning you.
it, far be it from Unitarian Universalists to turn the fifth degree into a ritual.
So are we about ready to begin, everyone?
I think so. Matt, we can go
So,
ahead. and
I
start.
will
Okay.
mute all and see you soon.
You were what?
These words are by our colleague Lisa Doge. For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning.
We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise.
For beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight.
We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise.
For all the times and all the ways we have begun anew together.
We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise.
minutes, 525,000 moments so dear, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter and strife, in 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in the life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love. Seasons of love. 525,600 minutes. 525,000 journeys to play. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure the life of a woman or a man? In truth that she learns on times that he cried, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died. It's time now to sing out, the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember, a year in the life of friends. Remember the love. You've got to remember the love. You know the love is a gift from above, baby. Spread love, give us measure your life in love. Seasons of love. Seasons of love. Measure your life in love.
Friends, here we are again. I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester's online Sunday morning worship service. We are so glad that you've joined us virtually this morning. It's an act of love that we gather this way once again during this time of pandemic response. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity for pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other, take a moment to reflect on our own well-being, discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment and service in the wider world, even as we are at a personal distance. We gather this way this morning in solidarity with those families in our community who have been exposed or diagnosed with COVID-19 in recent days. The health and safety team is meeting this week to assess plans for the coming weeks More information will be shared via weekly communications and on our website in the coming days. So that we might come to know you better as you are able, please list your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed on Facebook and is being recorded for future availability on the church YouTube channel, as well as our website worship archive. Following the service this morning, you're invited to join us for virtual fellowship hour. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. Our opening words are those of my colleague and friend, Sylvia Howe.
Thank you, Aaron. We bid you welcome on this first Sunday of the new year. Like Janus, we gather with part of us looking backward and part of us looking forward. We gather on the edge of the new year, saddened by our losses, cherishing our joys, aware of our failures, mindful of days gone by. We gather on the cusp of this new year, eager to begin anew, hopeful for what lies ahead, promising to make changes, anticipating tomorrows and tomorrows. We invite you to join our celebration of life, joining that life includes good and bad, endings and beginnings. We bid you welcome.
Please join in your own space our opening hymn, Ring Out Wild Bells.
Ring out wild bells to the wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty light. The year is dying in the night. Ring out wild bells and let it die. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let it go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind, for those that here we see no more. Ring out the feud of rich and poor, ring in redress to humankind. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let it go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out a slowly dying cause and ancient forms of party strife. Ring in the nobler modes of life with sweeter manners, pure laws. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let it go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out false pride in place and blood, the civic slander and the spite. Ring out the love of truth and right, ring in the love of common good. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let it go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out old shapes of foul disease, ring out the narrowing lust of gold. Ring out the thousand wars of old, ring in the 1,000 years of peace. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let it go. Ring out the false, ring in the true.
Not certain if Robin is able to join us this morning. She's on her way back from California. The news this week for Religious Exploration is that the Religious Exploration program also has paused its program for today, including postponing its youth group meeting tonight these conversations about making this pause began a little over a week ago as we experienced for the first time in this community a number of families who had been saddled either with members that had received positive COVID tests or families that had been notified that they had been exposed to COVID over the holidays. This is not a new phenomenon for individuals, but as a community, this was quite the surprise that we had so many families that were indicating that this had transpired, and it gave us a moment to think about how we protect each other, which was an important lesson for our children and something that we wanted to communicate to them, since many of our youngest hadn't yet been able to receive their vaccine, or for those who were made vulnerable by COVID-19. And so in conversation with Robin, we began by considering ways that we could do this. And one of them was to pause the RE program this week. And then the opportunity for us to discuss with the health and safety team about moving this service online. Health and safety team will meet this week and will be communicating its plans for the coming weeks. We hope that this is just a simple pause. And I know that every one of us did not relish the idea of going back online in entirety. However, I think that this is one of the ways that we demonstrate care for each other. And I'm so glad and grateful to everyone who supported this particular decision. And I know that it's a disappointment for many as well as me. And yet, I also know that we would not want to expose anyone to any kind of hardship if we could help it. And so that's why we've done what we've done. And our religious exploration program led the way. And I'm very grateful to Robin and for the teachers and others who communicated that necessity. Let me begin by saying this morning, because the service is centered around questions asked by the congregation to the minister, that Cheryl will post a link for those of you who would like to submit your question online. I'll also willingly take questions from those of you on the Zoom, and you're welcome to provide them at the time that we have our reflection. We pause at this time also to consider that which is most important in our lives and made symbolic because of that which we earn and are able to share in order that we might continue to provide for the mission and ministries of this congregation, a grateful offering that we take up every time that we come together for worship. This morning, that offering can be received in two ways, either by texting 508-231-5335 or by visiting www.uucworcester.org/donate. We're very grateful for those of you who continue to support us. This congregation has been and continues to be very, very generous, and we recognize that as the gift that it is for this community. At this time, our morning offering will be received.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and old lang syne?
And I'm going to invite you to go ahead and stop share. We come to that time in our service when we're given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts and most profoundly on our minds or in the work of our hands. In the days that have transpired or in the prospect of days to come, joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this morning to either raise your virtual hand or open your microphone so that I may call on you in turn. If you would like to share a joy or sorrow that you would like me to share, you're welcome to place it in the chat at this time. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this morning? Paul Moore.
Hello. Yes. Well, little sorrow about, like, it's funny, not to be shallow, but the passing of Betty White, which I never met her, but I just felt sad about it. And also I'm concerned about what's going to happen this week with on January 6th, because these are things I can't do anything about. And I wish I could, but I can't. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Diane?
So our extended family got really close yesterday to having a New Year's baby, the very first one in Indianapolis, Indiana. My nephew by marriage, Daniel Mann, and his spouse, Jesse, had a little baby girl, and her name is Layla, and she's doing well, and it's so exciting.
Congratulations, Diane. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know a number of us are also wishing Janet Cutman a speedy recovery from procedures this week. And I want to also reach out to all of those families who have been touched by COVID-19, either because they've been diagnosed with it or who have come in contact with people who have been diagnosed and therefore are quarantining at this time. Are there other joys or sorrows today? Laura Lenahan writes, one of my co-workers, Kitty's, needs emergency surgery for he's unable to urinate. He is having surgery Monday. Please keep Mittens in your thoughts. Kim writes, praying for all the teachers, staff, and students who return to school tomorrow. We are so worried about COVID. Cheryl, do you have a joy or sorrow to share?
I just wanted to share that I appreciate all the support everyone's been giving me. My mother had a stroke not too long ago and is doing her Lazarus dance again. We'll see what happens, but I appreciate everybody giving me the space that I needed, and I love having this community.
Nancy, do you have a joy or sorrow this morning?
Well, yes, I'd like to think of things in a positive way. So Paul Mar mentioned Betty White, and I just wanted to share the joy this morning at breakfast. My daughter, she always watches something on Facebook, and we watched Betty White's bloopers and had such a good laugh. She was the best comedian, I think, on television for decades. And I find that a great joy to have been able to have her humor be part of my life. And then secondly, my daughter shared, one of her friends popped onto Facebook some pictures. She had spent Christmas and this past week at Lake Tahoe. And as everybody knows, they got 8 feet of snow. So she and her family were snowed in for 5 days, and there was no electricity, but there was water at the place that they had rented. And the chalet had at least 6 feet of puffy snow on the roof in the picture. It was like right out of a cartoon, like Frozen, you know, it was just amazing to watch. And they said it was actually the best 5 days their family had ever had, because they only had each other, games to play, candles, and a wood stove. So that was my joy.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Nancy. I also want to have us acknowledge this morning the 1,000+ families that have lost their homes in Boulder, Colorado over the weekend due to a wild grass fire, and acknowledge that we continue to observe these kinds of events that I pray do not visit our area of the world, but recognize that we are all made vulnerable because of the condition of our planet. And that we, in the coming days, as we learn more about the needs in that area, we will communicate ways in which people can participate in the recovery effort. I await some word from the UUA if there are particular needs related to our congregations in Boulder as well. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love, source of our inner and outermost being, we come together with grateful hearts for the turning of the year, looking forward to better times, for healthier community, for a world made whole by her inhabitants, caring for each other and the environment that sustains us. Let's be mindful today of all those who are made vulnerable by dis-ease and by those forces of nature that remind us that we are deeply connected to the source of our being and to the planet that sustains us. Help us resolve this year to do what we can to continue to protect our planet and each other, our four-legged friends, and all that which helps to give us meaning and hope. Let this new year be just that, new. Awaken in us dreams that have yet to come to fruition. Allow us the opportunity to envision and to create that life which is most meaningful. Let us bring what we have to a bruised and hurting world so that healing be predominant among us. Let us be mindful of new life as it arrives, and for well-lived life as it continues in memory. For all of that which is true, right, real, and good this day and in all the days to come, we give great and abiding thanks. Amen. And blessed be. All right, and we can come right back out of the that, and I'm going to spotlight here and invite those of you who have questions to either raise your virtual hand or open your microphones. You'll notice that I have new glasses, and the result of that is that I have a blue filter, which is giving me all kinds of fits this morning. So my apologies to you, but my eyes are much healthier because of this. Let's see. The questions that have been collected thus far, I want to begin with one by Janet Cutman, who sent this to me prior to her procedure this week. She said, this is from the Bucket List movie. She said, according to the ancient Egyptians, in order to get into heaven, you must answer these two questions correctly. 1, have you experienced joy in your life? 2, have you spread joy to others? And so she writes, so Aaron, how do you answer each of these questions. I'm mindful today of the death of Desmond Tutu. In one of the books that has touched me greatly throughout the last few years is the Book of Joy that was written by Desmond Tutu, Encounters between Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And one of the things that strikes me most about Desmond Tutu is that he had a countenance that entered any situation and demanded that people recognize their capacity for joy. He had an infectious laugh. So one of the ways that I have experienced joy in my life are those moments when I don't take myself so seriously or the world so seriously that I'm incapable of finding something to smile or to laugh about. And in terms of spreading joy to others, I find that joy comes most often in those moments when I'm able to have deep connection with someone. A conversation that goes beyond platitudes, goes beyond the hi, how are you, and actually begins to explore the things that are most meaningful in someone's life. And as a minister, I am blessed with opportunities all the time to have these kinds of conversations. I think that people come to expect that with their minister, they're able to have a deeper kind of conversation. And so for me, joy is that moment when awareness is lit in someone about their own capacity, about their own insights, their own way of contributing to the world, ways that maybe had been hidden or that had been obscured by circumstance. So joy for me is moments of deep connection, moments of laughter, moments when people have an opportunity to discover something about themselves that they are giving birth to or that they had forgotten and realize they have a deep capacity for. Let's see, other questions this morning. Why does life seem so unfair and hard at times? For me, the answer to that question that I have appreciated most this past year in particular is when I revisit the video on resilience by Lucy Hone. And those of you who remember sharing that video this summer, remember that she was talking about resilience, and she is a resilience expert who also, in the process of responding to the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand, became one who felt the deeper understanding of resilience with the loss of her 12-year-old daughter and her daughter's friend and mother in a vehicle accident. And Lucy says in that video, many people begin with the question, why me? And she responds, for me, the question is not why me, it is why not me? And so what she highlights, at least for me, is the notion that life seems unfair and hard at times, largely because it hasn't met our expectations. And I don't know about how many of you are control freaks like your minister, but the hardest time in my life comes when life doesn't respond the way that I would like to demand it to, and realize that I have very little control over many of the circumstances that I have to attend to, and that what I do have control over and what responds to that sense that life is hard and unfair is, regardless of the circumstance, I have something in me that I can offer. And so the meditation in response to life is hard and seems unfair is, what is it in this moment that I can bring to be able to affect something that is healing, something that provides stability, something that provides understanding, compassion, and love. And the second question, actually, what are some of the best ways that you use build resilience during difficult times, is probably answered best by what I just said. And that is the reality that we don't have necessarily a lot of control over circumstances, nor do we have control often about outcomes. And I think that that's a powerful understanding. Again, this is an old saw for me. I go back to the understanding of hope provided by people like Václav Havel and Cornel West. Hope is not about endings, it's about capacity. It's about thinking about what it is that you can bring to be able to alleviate suffering, to provide compassion, to be able to express understanding and connection, and a sense that we are in this together, regardless of what the circumstance are. Resilience is the opportunity to bring what we have to bear on what is, not on what we want it to be, not on what we hope it will end up like, but recognizing that even if it doesn't end the way we want it to, that we have the capacity for hope because we can bring something to bear on it. And so the meditation for me always is, what is it that I can do in the midst of what is happening? Third question, how can I help you? Where do I begin? I think that you can help me most in what I do as a minister is by being as present as you can, offering your talents, offering your gifts, joining in the effort to create a better, more just and peaceful world, availing yourselves of opportunities for learning and for leadership in the many ways that this congregation offers those opportunities, whether it is by one of the many groups that is striving to create a deeper understanding and ways of being able to met out justice in the world, or if it is by taking seriously the opportunity to become more deeply aware of the religious tradition that you belong to and what it has to offer you personally, as well as what it has to offer the world. Another question, does the Unitarian Universal, does UU offer any daily devotional resources? What would you recommend? I would recommend that you visit the the bookstore at uua.org, and you will discover there that every year the UUA provides a devotional manual that is written by or compiled by one of the ministers in the tradition, or by a layperson who has a great deal of insight. These are a wonderful gift to yourself and to those that you love. Every year they come out with another one of these devotionals. In addition to that, I have found a couple of other colleagues that have had devotionals. John Morgan, a friend of mine who was one of our Universalist scholars in the Mid-Atlantic region near Reading, Pennsylvania, has a UU devotional that has a devotion for every day of the year. That's wonderful. The other is Frank Schulman's book on Unitarian Universalist days, which provides a historical reflection for every day of the year on important happenings within our tradition. And then in addition to that, I find that, and I want to commit myself to getting back into this, we had started two different Facebook groups, one on Touchstone Ministries and the other on daily daily readings. And I had gotten away from it this fall. I'm hoping that coming into the new year, we can keep that up so that on a daily basis, people can find an inspirational quote or an image or a poem or a reflection on a particular happening on the day of the year. Those will be forthcoming, and I hope that that would add to the collection as well. Let's see. I need to take this down. Another question is, did anyone go to the church to physically post that we would not be there? The answer is no, there was no physical posting there. We did send out multiple emails as well as multiple social media contacts as well. And those emails came in two different forms, either through Constant Contact or through Power Church Plus. And the second is, what is your favorite piece of music? Those of you who know me may not know that I was weaned essentially on Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture. As a child, my earliest memory in my life is standing in my crib, looking through the bars of the crib at the old record player that was sitting on a table next to the wall. And I demanded that when I went down for a nap, that they put on that record. When I was in college, if I wanted to take a break for an hour, I would literally put my headphones in and I would play the 1812 overture, and I would, fascinatingly enough, I would go to sleep, but I would wake up right as it would begin its climax, and I would feel rested. When I was a child, we would go to Long Park in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for the 4th of July celebration. And every year they played the 1812 overture with the howitzer cannons from the local National Guard. And I remember burying my face in my father's chest when I first heard those booms. But over my life, that particular piece of music has given me energy and inspiration and much, much joy. Let's see. So from Reverend Lachey, what is a good psalm or Bible passage to ease the loneliness of lockdown? So for me, the Bible passage that I return to is the baptism of Jesus in the Gospel of Mark, I believe it is. And why is that important? Well, if you read a number of the Gospels that are synoptic, meaning that they are connected and they tell often the same stories, a couple of the Gospels report that moment as a dove descended and the words were, "This is my beloved Son with whom I am well pleased." Which means that the voice was speaking to everyone who was watching or observing what was happening. But there is one gospel that reports, and this is important, I think, for me and I hope for all of us, where the words that are spoken are, "You are my beloved child with whom I am well pleased." That intimate kind of communication from the source of creation. And for me, it translates into any particular spirituality where there is a deeply felt sense that you are loved, even when you feel disconnected from others, even when you feel at a distance from others, that you are loved and you can rely on that in a sense of spirit, in a sense of insight about your own capacity. That's an important resource, at least for me. The other question I have here is, I've always taken to heart your encouragement to engage beloved family in difficult conversations when we clearly do not see eye to eye. But this has become near impossible for me as discourse has become exceedingly difficult over the past few years. Fear for democracy. What do you demise? I demise patience, or I advise patience. I advise that you continue to provide a listening ear, and that you engage by asking those questions which allow someone to more deeply describe what it is that is behind anger, fear, sadness. I think that the basis for most of our conversations are fear-based when it comes to these kinds of disagreements, especially about the world in this moment. A lot of people that fear losing control, a lot of people that are in fear because of misinformation, a lot of people that are in fear because of loss of power. What I do when I face people like that is I greet them and try to communicate to them that I take them seriously. I've had a couple of engagements online over the last year and a half, particularly one related to the issue of Columbus statues, where I was treated online with a great deal of derision. And so my response to individuals that snap back at me some kind of a communication that suggests that they're not going to take me seriously, is to say to them, I take you seriously, and I assume that you're far more complicated than what you just communicated to me. I wonder if you and I can have a conversation about what's meaningful to you and why it's meaningful. And I hope that you'll give me the opportunity to express the same thing. Instead of dealing with what the difference between us is, if we begin by asking about what's most meaningful and why for individuals, and strive to find common language and an opportunity for us to express our differences in a way that allows us to continue to cherish each other's modus operandi. I know that that's very difficult, but it has to go beyond the rhetoric to begin to explore the intention and the desire of individuals. So I would begin there. How do you process the existential dread of climate change? Climate change, what types of lessons can young people carry forward as we face this great challenge of our time and look ahead to decades to come? I think that what I do to process the existential dread of climate change is continue to discover ways that I can influence the decisions that my family and I make and that others make by what I purchase, what I honor, how I demonstrate my care for the earth itself, and to encourage people to use their political power in order to be able to provide substantive change. And part of that is the realization, or the question of, what are we willing to sacrifice, or what are we willing to give up, or what are we willing to change in order for us to live in sustainable environments, and environments that are going to sustain the generations that come after us. And some of those are difficult choices. And I think that that's the most important kind of conversation that we can begin to have. I relish the opportunity for us as a congregation to continue to think about all of that in relationship to the work that we do as a community, whether it is continuing to develop and to demonstrate the importance of native plant gardening through our Garden On team, and helping our community at large to recognize this as one way of moving towards sustainability, or whether it is the installation of systems of atmospheric control in our buildings so that we lower our carbon footprint and encourage resources in our community so that everyone has the opportunity to do that without breaking the bank. Those are just some of the ways that I continue to think about that. Let's see. So those are the questions that I have that have been submitted. Are there any other questions from folks today who were on the meeting? If you have a question, you're welcome to open your mic. Cheryl.
I asked a very silly question, but I found the answers interesting as we were gathering. What is your family's traditional meal for New Year's?
My family's traditional meal, having spent the majority of my childhood in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, around the Amish community, was pork, sauerkraut, and mashed potatoes. Pork and sauerkraut was considered the New Year's meal, New Year's Day meal that provided luck for the new year. And so we indeed did have pork and sauerkraut yesterday, and we've got leftovers for at least the next month, because my wife cannot cook for any less than 80, I think. And there were 3 of us for the meal yesterday. Our son is up in Amherst, coming home today or tomorrow, so we've saved some for him as well. Another question on joy. What joys have you found that came about because of the pandemic? So I think one of the joys that I discovered in the pandemic was that we took the opportunity as a congregation to deeply engage in technologies that probably we would have taken a decade or so to engage fully had there not been this demand for us to begin to provide either solely online or multi-platform worship and meeting experiences. And that has provided an opportunity for people to be able to engage across distances and circumstances. So I want you to think about things like families that have members of the household who, thinking of a particular family that one of the members of the household was experiencing increasing episodes of dementia. And it's harder and harder for the family to be able to prepare that person to come in person to worship. But the discovery that they could be in their own environment, the individual knew that environment and could wander around it at will and take care of themselves while other members of the family were able to come on the video screen and experience the service, was actually a relief. I think that people who have connected with us over the distances, whether it's former members and friends that have moved away, or whether it is members of the extended families of those who are active in our congregation that have been introduced to us over distance, has given us an opportunity to broaden our message and to expand the territory in which we can provide this service. I also think that it's been the same way for meetings, that people, especially those who have been hesitant to be going out at night, over the years, we have found a way to be able to provide a platform so that those who can meet in person come together in person, and those who need to join by video conference are able to do so. And we have invested in a couple of pieces of technology in the building that allow at least 4 of our spaces to be used for that multi-platform purpose, which I think is wonderful. Are there any other questions this morning? So my question, Reverend Lachey, to you is, what inspires you?
I think the thing that gives me the most inspiration is when I'm suddenly encountered with a surprise that feeds me, whether it's snowflakes or a bird, or so I guess nature's a big part, but it's also the surprise of meeting someone I hadn't seen in a long time and having that connection suddenly be there, or getting a Christmas card from someone I hadn't talked to in decades. Inspires me that life keeps going and there's inspiration. All you have to do is look for it, or be aware when it happens. It's more unbidden and refreshing, and it makes my heart go faster. So maybe coffee.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Sherry, as the president of the congregation, what hopes do you have for our community in the coming year?
I hope that collectively we can put our energy to good use and be good examples in our community and city, and, you know, carry that as far out as we can. And I hope that we do that with love and black cats.
Thank you so much. Let's see here. So Beth Posner-Waldron, what do you hope happens in terms of working for a more just democracy over the next year?
It's a question that I've really been struggling with and concerned about. First off, on Thursday, January 6th, there is going to be a vigil at the corner of Park and Salisbury Street, Thursday at noontime, to for people to express their feelings about preserving our democracy. I think that more of us that are concerned about our democracy need to share that concern and to not be willing to let others usurp the image of our flag, that we can be continuing to educate people about the importance of being engaged in what's going on at a very local level, as well as throughout our state and the national level. I just think we can't be silent. We have to continue to raise our voice and continue to vote and be aware of what's going on.
Thank you so much. Let's see here. Michelle, what does money symbolize to you? And if those of you who don't know, Michelle is the treasurer of the congregation. So I'm wondering, you who are steeped in our finances, what does money symbolize to you?
Symbolize to me. So in our society, it's so important. I mean, maybe almost too important to keep things going, to keep us moving. But the money that we have allows us to, number one, hire wonderful staff such as yourself, Erin, and to continue to reach out to the community through ways such as, our food pantry and our garden, our garden on team with the native plants. So it's unfortunately, it's our means to get everything done. Fortunately, we are blessed to have a congregation that supports us and an investment fund that keeps us going.
Great, thank you so much. So Karen Stevenson, you're muted, but I thought I'd ask you, can you tell us what the importance of sound is?
Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. To me, sound is the beginning of everything. It's the way the world started. It's the way we communicate. It's the way we express joy and sorrow. It's singing, it's humming, it's bird sound, it's fire. It's movement. It is a way to express gratitude and love. It's everything. And it's silence.
For those of you who don't know it, Karen has provided sound baths, opportunities for people to engage in the
and I
experience of
am currently going to put up 30 days of gratitude that I'd love for everybody to join. It will be on my Facebook page. I'll link it in Church Peeps. I think we've had a hard year, and I think we've also had blessings. So it will be short sound pieces and exercises on expressing gratitude.
Great, thank you so much. Matt, what is your favorite piece of music? Or one of your favorite. Let me broaden the question. Tell us about one of your favorite pieces of music and why it's a favorite.
There's a piece of music that I have never played that kind of haunts me. It's the Liszt B minor sonata. And every time that I've heard this, it kind of moves me to my core. But it is so hard that I made a commitment at 40 years ago that at some point in my life that I would play that piece of music. I'm afraid I'm not that much closer today than I was when I made that commitment. But there are pieces, I will say that I am moved almost every day by music that I hear, either physically or in my head. And I can remember at one point talking with Joe Jenks, one of the friends of our church, who talked about the soundtrack in his mind, and I literally have music going in my head almost all the time. And I guess whatever I'm hearing is my favorite.
That's great. Thank you so much. Let's see, Kate Bajun. Where is Kate Bajun? Kate,
I'm
you
here.
are standing in the, your picture is standing in the midst of the stacks at Assumption College, correct?
Correct.
What is your favorite book and why?
Oh dear. I can't think of a
Or
favorite book right
tell
now.
me one of your favorites. How's that? Let's not get
I'll
into
tell you the
it.
book that was on my wish list this Christmas that I have started to read. It's called Atlas of the Heart. It's Brene Brown's latest. And the subtitle is Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Human Experience. And it goes through 87 emotions and experiences that define what it means to be human. And I am barely into the book, but I've heard her speak on numerous podcasts about this work. And she sort of explains it as, in order to connect with others, we need to have language to express our true selves, and language to connect the feelings and experiences of others. So really kind of digging into how we experience life and what our emotions and feelings are. And I see some Brene Brown echoes in the chat. So if anyone else is reading this book, let me know. I would love to chat about it.
Excellent idea. Perfect. Thank you for that. And let's see here. I just saw, oh, I think she must have gone off. All right. Let's see here. Nancy Hancock. Are you there? Nancy,
Yes,
are you?
I'm here.
So you have been instrumental in helping to coordinate the evening book group at the church this past year. Can you tell us about one book that was inspirational for you and why?
Oh my. Well, my modus operandi for the book group is to try, when people in our group suggest books, I try to pick ones that relate to our principles, our UU principles, so that the discussion is meaningful in that way. Over the years, we've begun to just have books that are, a lot of books that are just fun. So for me, I live in the moment. So it's really the book I'm reading at the moment that that my mind wanders to. And so that would be, right now I'm reading Desert Queen by Janet Wallach. And it's a historical book and biography of a woman named Gertrude Bell, a Victorian woman at the turn of the last century who remained single all her life for one reason or another and was extremely wealthy, an English woman. And she used her money to explore the what we know today as the Middle East and Arabia. And right now, my mind dwells on the fact that she became, through this travel and experience and extensive journaling and sending letters back to the wealthy, connected people in England who were sort of running the English empire, that she became not just an archaeologist, but a cultural anthropologist as well. And so in my mind, I'm comparing even the things we're saying today about joy and our struggles, and comparing that in an anthropological way, and how that would be thought of in Bedouin society in the in this time and space. And perhaps even there are Bedouins today in Arabia, and it's sort of helping me to explain in my mind why the Arab world is always in turmoil and perhaps always will be, because it's the structure of their society, which is really quite different from ours, especially women's place in it. And that's what our book group tends to, in the end, almost every time we compare women's role in society with what the book that we're reading brings us to.
Great. Thank you so much, Nancy. Jesse Trowbridge.
Yes.
What is the relationship between pottery, the making of pottery, and emotion? How do you feel? What happens to you as a potter when you start to spin?
Well, I can be a very impulsive person. Like I tend to, I'm not like an attention to detail sort of person. And I make something and I want to move on and call it done and call it good. And I think because the process of pottery is so slow, it forces me to slow down, and there's the actual forming stage. But so much happens between that and the end. And it requires weeks of waiting between steps and thinking about goals and perfecting techniques. And then when it's finally done, you can't fix it. You can't go back and try to slapdash fix it. So you have to either accept it or start again. And that's good for me. And I also think there's something very centering about the process of staring at something and trying to center it and trying to form it and inch it and nudge it closer and closer and closer to a center. And it's almost like a hypnotic experience to sort of watch something spinning and to hold something spinning and to very carefully and gently trying to kind of bring it towards the center. So those are a couple of the things that pottery does for me emotionally. It kind of gives me a space to focus and breathe and slow down.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions for the day? I think, Matt, we are ready to move on to, oh, Barry, did you have a question?
I did.
Go ahead.
A question for you, Aaron, is to you, what is spiritual? What does spiritual mean? And how do you incorporate as many different spiritual experiences into our tradition of UUism?
So in my class that I offer at Worcester State on the sociology of religion, we talk about the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion coming as it does out of the Latin root religio, which is to bind. And spiritual coming out of the word spirit, whose Hebrew origins are ruha, which is breath. And so what I talk about is religion are those institutions and ways of being that bind us to the past, the present, and the future, and each other. That includes ways of coming together, ways of remembering, and ways of creating for future possibilities. Spirituality, in terms of breath, is what sustains us and gives us meaning. It is the way in which we understand ourselves in relationship to the wider world, to that which is beyond the wider world, to our inner selves. And so spirituality is a meaning-making process, and religion is a binding process. For me, what's most important about expanding the notion of what is spiritual is by looking at the variety of human traditions that have been meaningful to people, both in our own context and in the community that we serve and the world in which we exist. And by bringing to bear some of the insight from those spiritual traditions in various parts of the year, either in relationship to various kinds of religious celebrations or moments in the calendar or opportunities for us to honor the life and work of particular individuals, we come to understand, one, that our own spiritual journey is one of thousands upon thousands of spiritual journeys, and that the conclusions that we come to are not the only or right conclusions, they are the right conclusions for us in the moment, but that there are others that are as meaningful and as right for those who espouse them. And the challenge is for us to be able to engage each other and to be able to honor the integrity of those different spiritual orientations in ways that do not diminish them or subordinate them to our own claims to truth and understanding. Let us close our time together this morning by singing with the First Unitarian Church in Baltimore, "Wake Now, My Senses."
The benediction today comes from Kate Lohr, known as A New Year Begins. Great Spirit of life, as a new year begins, we turn inward to reflect about the state of our lives. What lessons have we learned in the past year, and which new ones now call us forward? To whom do we still owe an apology or expression of thanks? And with whom must we draw fresh boundaries? As we pause from our regular rhythms of rush, 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 we open ourselves to new perspectives and possibilities. We give thanks for these moments and for the wisdom they afford us. May they help bring us together in the sacred dynamics of life so that we, as individuals and as members of this community, might reach our full potential. As we step across this threshold, let this new year be a year of greater awe and gratitude, of deeper kindness and acceptance, and more courageous acts of conviction. For a kinder, more equitable, and sustainable world is not only possible, she's on her way. And in the quietness of this sacred community, we can ever hear her breathing.
Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. I said, it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. I say it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. I say it's alright. Sun, 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 here we come. 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 Little darling, I see the ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. It's alright. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. It's alright.